Okay, so today we're really diving into a story
Yeah.
that's got more twists and turns than
Right.
than a Baltimore row house staircase.
Right.
We're talking Station East.
Okay.
This neighborhood that was practically a ghost town,
Wow.
80% of its homes were vacant.
Yeah.
Imagine that for a second, 80%
Yeah.
vacancy.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
eerie quiet.
it is, yeah.
But then came this bold plan to revitalize it, turn it into this haven for young professionals.
Yeah.
On paper, a win-win.
Yeah.
But as our deep dives often reveal, the devil's in the detail.
Of course, as always.
Blight.
Yeah, it's a classic tale of urban renewal, but with some unexpected plot twists. We're going to unpack not just what happened,
Right.
but why it matters for cities grappling with similar challenges all over.
Exactly, because this wasn't just some fly-by-night developer swooping in.
Right.
We're talking big players like Johns Hopkins Hospital,
Yeah.
a cornerstone of Baltimore,
Hmm.
putting their weight and their money behind this.
Wow.
And alongside them, the Able Foundation, known for tackling tough social issues.
Mm-hmm.
This wasn't just about flipping houses for profit.
Right.
This was about rebuilding a community from the ground up.
Yeah.
Or at least that was the pitch.
And that's what makes it so fascinating.
Yeah.
The project promised the moon,
Okay.
new residents, thriving businesses,
Oh,
all while keeping the original residents in their homes.
right.
They even pledged reasonable prices,
Okay.
which, let's be honest, is practically unheard of in these types of revitalization projects.
It's like the holy grail of urban development, right?
It-
Revitalization without the sting of displacement.
Right.
But you might be thinking, if it sounds too good to be true,
Exactly.
it probably is.
Yeah.
And that's where we start to see the cracks in this revitalized dream.
This was a huge gamble from the start. Renovating these decades-old homes was bound to be expensive.
Oh, yeah.
And no one could guarantee they'd sell, especially at the prices they were aiming for.
Right.
Plus, remember that early promise of affordable housing?
Yeah.
Well, somewhere along the way, that part of the plan got dropped.
Oof. That's a red flag right there.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing this is where the residents' complaints start rolling in.
You guessed it. We've got leaky roofs, flooded basements,
Oh, no.
the kind of stuff that makes you wonder if those renovations were really up to snuff. Some residents are pointing fingers at the developers, claiming they cut corners to maximize their profits.
And on the other side of the coin,
Yeah.
what are the developers saying in their defense?
They're pushing back naturally.
Okay.
They claim they've offered to make the necessary repairs
Or if you-
and blame these issues on the age of the homes, and even get the unpredictable Baltimore weather.
So it's a classic case of he said, she said,
Right.
but with real people's homes and lives hanging in the balance.
Exactly.
Let's dive into some specific examples, because remember, this isn't just about abstract concepts like revitalization.
Mm-hmm.
It's about Shauna Fredericks,
Right.
a young professional who bought into the Station East dream,
Yeah.
only to find her dream home came with a leaky roof.
And Shauna's story, unfortunately, isn't unique. The Baltimore Sun article we provided highlights several residents who've experienced similar issues. Leaky roofs seem to be a recurring theme here.
Which makes you wonder, was this just a case of bad luck?
Yeah.
Or were there systemic issues with the renovations themselves? And this is where things get even more complicated.
Okay.
Remember those big players back in the project?
Right.
Well, they helped secure a state tax credit to help fund the project,
Okay.
a tool usually meant for homeowners.
Right, and this is where the plot thickens.
Okay.
Some residents claim they were led to believe this tax credit would translate into lower home prices.
Interesting.
But that's not what happened,
Wow.
which has left many feeling misled and questioning the whole system.
So we've got residents stuck with homes that need repairs, developers dodging blame,
Right.
and this cloud of suspicion hanging over the whole project.
It seems like it.
It's starting to feel like that shiny facade of revitalization is crumbling, revealing some uncomfortable truths underneath.
Yeah. It really highlights the tension that exists at the heart of so many urban revitalization efforts.
Yeah.
On the surface, Station East might look like a success story,
Right.
with its shiny new facades and influx of young professionals.
Right. Picture those before and after photos you see in magazines.
Exactly. But if you dig a little deeper, you start to see who's really benefiting from this transformation.
Right.
Are we simply shifting demographics
Yeah.
rather than creating truly inclusive communities? That's the question.
And it's a question this tax credit situation brings into sharp focus. Because if residents were promised lower home prices based on that credit,
Yeah,
and that didn't happen,
right.
it feels like a bait and switch, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And it raises questions about transparency and accountability.
Right.
Were the developers upfront about how the tax credit would be used? Were residents given all the information they needed to make informed decisions?
It makes you wonder if those original plans for affordable housing were scrapped
Yeah.
to make the numbers work, to make the project more appealing to investors,
Yeah. That's certainly a possibility and one that residents are voicing. We see this time and time again in cities across the country.
Right.
The pressure to attract investment sometimes overshadowing the needs of the community that's already there.
It's a tough balance to strike. But let's not forget about those residents dealing with leaky roofs and flooded basements. What recourse do they have?
Yeah.
Did the articles mention any solutions being considered?
The Baltimore Sun article does shed some light on that. It seems the Maryland Attorney General's office, recognizing the gravity of the situation, has stepped in to mediate the dispute between the homeowners and the developers.
Okay, so there's some attempt at finding a resolution.
Right.
What are the homeowners hoping to achieve through this mediation?
Many are seeking financial compensation for the repairs they've had to make,
Why?
which, let's be honest, isn't ideal. They shouldn't have to bear the burden of fixing issues that should have been addressed from the start.
Right.
Some are even demanding their money back, arguing that the developers misrepresented the quality of the renovations.
And how are the developers responding to these accusations?
As you might expect, they're sticking to their guns.
Okay.
They maintain they've offered to fix any legitimate construction issues and stand by the quality of their work. They're essentially saying these things happen especially with older homes.
Blaming it on Baltimore's weather seems like a bit of a stretch, though.
It does feel like a convenient excuse.
Yeah.
But it highlights the complexity of the situation.
Yeah.
It's not always easy to pinpoint blame, and there's often truth on both sides.
So we've got this stalemate, this clash between the promise of revitalization and the realities of what happens when things go wrong.
Yeah.
But this isn't just a Station East problem, is it?
And not at all. This is a microcosm of a much larger conversation happening in cities all over the U.S. We're grappling with these issues of gentrification, affordable housing, and the role of public funding in urban development.
It's about more than just bricks and mortar.
Exactly. It's about people's lives, their sense of belonging, and their ability to stay in the communities they've always called home.
It feels like we're caught in this cycle.
Yeah.
We see these neighborhoods struggling.
Right.
We pour in money and resources for revitalization.
Mm-hmm.
But often it seems like the original residents end up getting pushed out their needs, overshadowed by the allure of profit.
Right.
It makes you wonder, is there a way to break this cycle?
Yeah.
Is there a way to do urban revitalization differently?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, there's no one-size-fits-all answer.
Right.
But what we've learned from countless examples,
Yeah.
Station East being just one,
Right.
is that true revitalization can't just be about aesthetics,
No.
about creating a glossy facade.
Right.
It has to start with the community itself.
So less about imposing a vision and more about listening to the people who actually live there.
Exactly. It's about understanding their needs, their concerns, and their aspirations for their neighborhood.
Okay.
It's about involving them in every step of the process,
Wow.
from planning to implementation.
Okay.
It's about building trust, which, as we've seen, is easily broken when promises are made but not kept.
That makes a lot of sense because if residents feel like they're being heard,
Right.
if they have a say in what's happening in their own backyard, they're more likely to buy into the vision.
Absolutely. And that sense of ownership, that feeling of being a valued part of the process can make all the difference. It's not just about revitalizing a physical space.
Right.
It's about revitalizing the very fabric of a community.
It's about making sure those before and after photos reflect a positive change for everyone involved,
Yeah.
not just a select few.
Precisely. It's about recognizing that a community's strength lies in its diversity, its history, and the people who call it home.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Station East,
Right.
it's clear that there's still a lot to unpack, a lot of questions to ponder.
Yeah.
What happens to the residents still fighting for repairs?
Right.
Will the developers be held accountable for the issues that have arisen?
These are questions that deserve answers, not just for the sake of Station East, but for any community grappling with the complexities of urban renewal.
Because this story isn't over yet.
It isn't.
It's still being written.
Right.
And it's up to all of us to pay attention, to learn from both the successes and the missteps.
Yes.
And to advocate for a future where revitalization truly means creating thriving, inclusive communities for everyone.